Hello, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Cassandra. I am part of the Aquarium of the Pacific and part of the Sea Turtle Safe program, Saving Animals from Extinction. This program is part of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and we are so excited to have our expert webinar. I've got a few other people on with us from the Sea Turtle Safe program. Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Thorvalson, Senior Manager of Conservation at the South Carolina Aquarium and also Program Leader for Sea Turtle Safe.
Awesome. And we have Katie. Katie, why don't you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Katie Emmons. I'm the Conservation Programs Coordinator at the Dallas Zoo, and I help mostly with the communication side of things on Sea Turtle Safe.
Wonderful. And we have an amazing speaker who we're going to introduce and talk a little bit about the amazing work that he has done. I'm so excited to have him here. I got to see him from afar once upon a time at a conference in Las Vegas about sea turtles of all places and all things. And I've been a great fan ever since. And so excited to have him joining us and to have all of you joining us today. We've got a pretty big webinar to celebrate our World Sea Turtle Day for 2024. And we've got a big topic today, the leatherback sea turtle. So I think we're going to all have quite a bit of fun. It looks like our attendees have rolled in, and with that, I think I'm going to hand this over to Kelly for some introductions. Kelly, why don't you introduce our speaker?
Wonderful. Thank you, Cassandra, and welcome everyone. For those of you that may have joined just in the last few seconds, my name is Kelly Thorvalson, Senior Manager of Conservation at the South Carolina Aquarium and Program Leader for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Sea Turtle Safe program. In case you missed Cassandra talking about what SAFE stands for, it's an acronym for Saving Animals from Extinction. And more than 40 SAFE programs are working to protect some of the most endangered animals in range habitats around the globe. Sea Turtle Safe has 19 program zoos and aquariums from across the U.S., working collectively to protect sea turtles beyond our normal scope of work in our facilities. And although much of the work benefits all sea turtles, we do have a specific focus on two of the most critically endangered, the Kemp's ridley and the Eastern Pacific leatherback, which is partly at the heart of Dr. Spotila's talk today. This is our fourth live expert webinar, and we're planning another for the fall. So stay in touch with us, and we will be bringing more experts to you in this format. Our webinars live on the Sea Turtle Safe YouTube channel, so we encourage you to watch past webinars if you haven't already. We'll be sending everyone a link to that YouTube channel, so you don't have to search for it on your own following this webinar. We're so incredibly pleased to have Dr. Spotila, a pioneer in sea turtle conservation and research, with us today. But I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to mention the incredible loss to the sea turtle community and really the world. We had a wonderful and inspiring friend and colleague, Jay Nichols, pass just in the recent days. Jay was an extraordinary sea turtle conservationist and researcher, and in recent years, his work on blue mine changed the way that the world understands the health benefits of being in or around water. I think the best way we can all honor Jay is to continue to move his work forward to protect the big blue marble. And you all probably understand exactly what that means and would mean to Jay. Our hearts go out to his beautiful family. As Cassandra mentioned, Katie, Cassandra, and I will be just making sure that the webinar goes smoothly. I'm going to turn it over to Cassandra to go over housekeeping, and then I'll introduce Dr. Spotila and some of his great accomplishments over the years. Cassandra?
Thank you so much, Kelly. Just a reminder for everybody, this webinar is being recorded. As Kelly mentioned, it will be uploaded to the AZA Sea Turtle Safe Program's YouTube channel and distributed to everyone who registered. Please share this with friends and colleagues. Please add your questions into the Q&A feature during the presentation. You can add them at any time, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. The incredible Mark Swingle has already demonstrated that Q&A feature just by saying hello to Dr. Spotila. And we have the opportunity to answer those questions and answer them live after the presentation, as many as time allows. Participants are able to see the questions. You're also able to upvote a question if it is one you're particularly interested in hearing answered. This will help us choose if there happen to be more questions than we have time for, which there may indeed be. The chat on this webinar has been disabled to avoid confusion with the Q&A. However, we are going to be adding helpful links into the chat during the presentation for all of you to see. With that, I'll turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Cassandra. All right, Dr. James R. Spotila is chairman of the board of the Leatherback Trust and Betts Chair Professor Emeritus at Drexel University. In 1978, he led the team that did the first successful radio and sonic telemetry of a sea turtle while on an expedition to Tortuguero, Costa Rica, with Dr. Archie Carr. In 1980, he and Stephen Morali and Edward Standora discovered that temperature determined the sex of green sea turtles. That fundamental discovery of temperature sex determination changed the way conservationists incubated sea turtle eggs and is still one of the major components of any discussion of climate change and global warming. In 1989, he and Frank Palladino were the first to measure the metabolic rate of a leatherback sea turtle on the beach in Costa Rica. Since then, they've been heavily involved in sea turtle research and conservation in Costa Rica, publishing many scientific articles on the impact of climate change on sea turtles and their eggs. In 1994, they convinced President Clinton to support the creation of a national park at Playa Grande on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. With this formation of the Leatherback Trust in 2001, they've raised millions of dollars to help acquire land for the park, which is known as Parque Marino Las Balas, and to consolidate it. With a biological station at Playa Grande, a station at Playa Cabayul, and a cooperative program with fishermen at El Hobo near the Nicaraguan border, they continue that work today. Meanwhile, Dr. Spotila spent 2 years as chief environmental scientist in the Department of the Army during the Clinton administration, trained 95 MS and PhD students, and published over 200 scientific articles and 3 books, probably that are sitting on our shelves as we speak. Now officially retired from Drexel University, he's still involved full-time with sea turtle biology and conservation. He just doesn't get paid. One thing before I turn it over to Dr. Spotila, the Sea Turtle Safe Program has worked with the Leatherback Trust since 2021 to support beach monitoring and nest protection at Playa Cabayul in Costa Rica. This is a secondary nesting beach for Eastern Pacific leatherbacks and an important beach to increase protection and research on. This program has served as a valuable co-pilot. I'm sorry, I don't know where I even got co-pilot from. As a valuable pilot program for our Adopt a Beach concept. It's now that I need to stop talking and let Dr. Spotila take it over. Take it away.
Thank you. I'll share my screen and we'll get started. Hopefully share my screen. There we go. Share. Put the sea turtle talk on here. There we go. All right, we're going to talk about saving sea turtles in Costa Rica. But first, I too want to just say a few words about Jay Nichols. Having known Jay Jay since he was a new graduate student and watched him in his career as he moved forward to become one of our major sea turtle conservationists and ocean conservationists. It's certainly always heartening to see folks develop and bring the next generation along. It's therefore devastating when you lose such a person like Jay. Both Karen Bjorndal and Blair Witherington had very insightful words on sea turtle, the sea turtle list. And I agree, that Jay spoke to our spirituality. Frank Palladino and I used to kid that Jay was, he was kind of fluffy, kind of reaching out to people, as opposed to just a hard, mean old scientist. But he spoke to spirituality, and his kindness, his compassion, and creativity were urgently needed in our field. He's had a great effect on so many people around the world, sea turtle people, but all people. And we're grateful to Jay for enriching our lives and for making each of us a better person. We're really lucky to have him in our lives and in our sea turtle community, and we mourn his loss, and we have to continue in his pathway in what we're doing. In my sea turtle book, I talked about heroes, sea turtle heroes, and Jay certainly is a sea turtle hero. Who's a hero? Hero is somebody who goes out every day on the beach or in the water in the sea turtle world, or in the zoo or in the aquarium, and just does their best every day to make the animals better, make the world better. And they're a role model for us in that way. So the hero is somebody who just keeps doing it. People say it's not going to work. People say, oh, the beach is lost. People say you can't save the turtles in the water. You just keep doing it. You keep doing it. And my kids gave me this card yesterday for dads who fix everything. If we just had more duct tape, I think we could save the turtles. So it may look like the ship's going down, but it doesn't matter. You just keep doing what you're doing, one turtle at a time, one box turtle, one snapping turtle, one Kemp's Ridley. Every one you save, every bit you do, you just keep doing it. And those are the heroes like Jay, and those are the heroes like everybody who's trying to do their little bit to save turtles. All right, let's talk about sea turtles in Costa Rica. Now, I realize as I put this talk together, I'm talking about what we've been doing on the Pacific coast. But to talk about sea turtles in Costa Rica, you have to start with Archie Carr, the gentleman on the left, on the Alpha Helix, talking to fishermen in the Mosquito Cays in Nicaragua. Go back and read his books, Windward Road and So Excellent a Fish. He was an extraordinary person, and we're fortunate to be able to work with him. Since Archie started the business of sea turtle conservation in Costa Rica, so many people have been involved. And let's see if I can move this along here. I don't want to talk about them yet. And currently, if you think about Maria Teresa Coburg, who started the park at Playa Grande, Danya Esperanza, who was a poacher of eggs, who became a sea turtle savior and organized the local community. Kike and Yanni at the Kike's restaurant, who feed us and work in the local community. All these people. And the various sea turtle people, Randall Arauz, and Rodney Pietra, and Carlos Arrego, and Didier Chacon. All of them, and so many others in Costa Rica, day in and day out. Stanley Rodriguez, they're working to make sea turtles better in Costa Rica. So it's not just the little story I'm telling about our work that's important. What is important is all the people who've done all the hard work. On the left, Bibi Santadian And on the right, Frank Palladino. I think this is on Crete. They do all the hard lifting and in Costa Rica, try and make me look better. Frank actually gets in the water and saves turtles. This is at El Pobo. And we can't forget Mario Boza. Mario Boza, who was a dear friend and who we lost a couple of years ago, and Alvaro Galde. They formed the national parks of Costa Rica as young men around 1970. All the national parks, all conservation in Costa Rica rests on their shoulders. If it was not for them, there would be no national parks. If it was not for them, Las Balas wouldn't have been made. If it was not for them, all the beaches of Costa Rica would be filled with hotels and bars and houses, totally unregulated, totally unprotected, and there would be few, if any, sea turtles left. So we stand tall on their shoulders. I have to thank Chris Luganbiel on the right here with George Mendoza. George Mendoza was the sailor who kissed the nurse. Famous picture at the end of World War II in New York. Well, George had a fishing business out of Rhode Island and became friends. Chris met him and they got us on board his boat and they caught a leatherback in their pound net, which is a net that catches animals without killing them. And we were able to retrieve the leatherback turtle, put a transmitter on it, and obtain a telemetry data on that turtle off Rhode Island. That was back around 1980-ish. So if not for that, we wouldn't be doing leatherbacks. So let's run through the turtles. Maybe many, if not most people on this webinar already know all about turtles, but for those who don't, and for me who has to remind myself about them, I'll just go through the species. They're magnificent flyers. They fly through the water using their flippers the same way a bird flies. There's, of course, the green turtle, which eats vegetation. Look at the mouth part here for cutting up grass. A herbivore. Then, of course, the hawksbill with a bill like a hawk and beautiful shell that eats sponges and other things, but lots of sponges. And people used to and still do make jewelry out of their shells. Look at this monster, the loggerhead. I don't know about loggerheads. I guess they're okay as turtles. They're big. That carapace, the top shell, is a good meter long, as in the green turtle, the plastron underneath. Look at the jaw. You can get next to a green turtle or several other turtles who are laying their eggs. They don't much care, but if you get too close to that mouth, that loggerhead might bite you. They're carnivores. They eat shellfish, clams, etc., whatever they could eat. Thousands of them in Florida, moving up the east coast of the U.S. Their little friend, the olive ridley, is only about 70 or 80 centimeters long in carapace, almost as wide, very maneuverable, eats fast-moving crabs and things of that sort out in the ocean. And its close relative, Kemp's ridley, the most endangered sea turtle, down to about 500 adults back in the early 80s before protection began. They nest on Rancho Nuevo, Mexico, and the South Padre Island in Texas. And they come all the way up into the northeast coast of the U.S. They eat the same sorts of things that the olive ridley does. The flatback in Australia, obvious name for this turtle. It's another carnivore. It nests along the coast of Australia and New Guinea, the island of New Guinea. And then, of course, the king of all turtles, the leatherback, the one that everybody loves the most, eats jellyfish. And its carapace length can be 1.5 meters, 1.6 meters. It's a big turtle. It doesn't have a hard shell like the other turtles. You'll notice that it has ridges. Its shell is made of cartilage and bony ossicles. It cries She cries when she lays her eggs. All sea turtles cry. But that's actually a salt gland, which is producing a salt solution of 6% salt. So a sea turtle can drink seawater or take it in with its food, like a leatherback does when it eats jellyfish. And the leatherback has an esophagus that goes all the way to its rear end and back up again into the stomach. So it fills itself with jellyfish. It acquires water at the same time. And it can get 1 gallon of water for every 2 gallons of seawater that it drinks. Here she is digging out the nest with her front flippers, using the back flippers to dig the nest and lay the eggs. The back end of the turtle is shaped like a spoiler, essentially reducing turbulence so that the turtle can swim faster. Lay about 65 eggs the size of a small orange or tangerine on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, or 85 on the Caribbean coast. Throw sand around and go away. For perspective, it's Ed Jalowski, now a professor at North Texas State. We're convincing this turtle to walk onto a net so we could weigh it. It's always good to have students on your projects because somebody has to do all the heavy work. That gives you a perspective. But what's really interesting, I think, is the egg of any sea turtle. Reptile eggs have a leathery shell, not a hard shell like a chicken, but a leathery shell. It's the leathery shell that allowed them to lay their eggs on land and get out of the water. There's an amnion layer surrounding the developing egg, a chorion on the outside, and allantois, the green, which collects the waste. So the yolk, which you see in the middle, is absorbed, makes more baby turtle. The nitrogen waste goes here. That fluid also helps to maintain the fluid balance of the turtle. The amnion's a cushion, very similar, the same layers that are present in mammals, develop the placenta. They breathe through their shell. So you're going to bury a turtle egg, in the case of a leatherback egg, 50 to 75 centimeters deep. The turtle has to get its oxygen from the air through the depth of sand into the nest, through the egg by diffusion, and get the carbon dioxide out when it's breathing. How do you do that when you're buried that low? You do that because the beach at Playa Grande breathes. It actually breathes so that the air is pulled down into the nest when the tide goes out. And when the tide comes in, it pushes the air back out again. So it basically breathes for the turtle. We know that because Paul Sutherland from Kalamazoo College dug a hole as deep as himself, and he's a tall guy. Had it collapse a little bit. We dug him out again. He put a PVC pipe down to the ground water level, put a toilet bowl float on there with a rod, and then you can watch the tide go in and out, the level of the sand or the water change. You measure the air pressure. Again, it's important to have students to sit there all day to watch that thing go up and down. Well, 50, 60 days later, of course, all the little turtles come out. They come out as a group because they emerge as a group. We dig the nest up a couple days later to see if there are any stragglers. They run to the water and they swim away. So once they're in the water, it's a question of when did they come back? We think turtles come back to where they were hatched. And we know that we've been protecting the beach a long time. They should be coming back. When we did that study on temperature-dependent sex determination, published in 1982, we didn't really think beyond conservation. If you're putting all of the eggs that you save in Florida into a house trailer or some kind of a building with air conditioning, and you keep letting hatchlings go and they're all males, you're not going to see any more females coming back to lay eggs. So that was the question. Does temperature affect sex determination? Heintema and Mersovsky showed it did in snapping turtles. Does it work in sea turtles? So that's when Steve Moriali, Ed Standor, and I were doing that study. So Ed and I published a review paper in '85, and I just did some screen captures. How does this work? Around 29.5, when the nest temperature, the temperature in the middle of the nest is 29.5, you get like a 50-50 ratio of males and females in green turtles. And above 30 degrees and above, you get all females. And below 29, you get all males. And if the nest is somewhere in between 29.5 in the middle, but warmer in part, cooler in part, you get this mixed sex ratio. They don't have any sex chromosomes. Back in 1958, Hendrickson did some really interesting studies on producing female green turtle hatchlings on the Sarawak Islands. He wanted to know temperatures of these nests. And so he didn't have data loggers like we do now. He didn't have thermocouples. He didn't have any fancy way to measure temperature. So he hollowed out bamboo, and he took a laboratory thermometer, laid it down into the nest, let it equilibrate, pulled it out. And a laboratory thermometer has a large enough mercury bulb that it doesn't change temperature very quickly. So he could measure the temperature of a lot of these nests. Incredibly clever approach. What we did is we took his data on, these are the rainfall, rainy season, and the days to hatching. During the rainy season, longer time to hatch. During the hot season, shorter time to hatch. And we calculated the percent female based upon the days to emergence. We did that based on this regression that Heintema and Mersovsky had figured out, days to emergence and incubation temperature. So you use this regression to predict temperature, and then based on days to emergence, we predicted sex. Now, what's really interesting is the way temperature changes in the nest. In a sunny nest, this is the olive ridley at Nansite. The nest temperature spikes at this point, just before hatching. All the eggs have hatched. The hatchlings are crawling around, generating a lot of heat. The temperature spikes up 1 day, 2 days, and then drops as the turtles crawl above my thermocouple. Same thing happened in a shaded nest, which was, of course, much cooler. So you can tell when your turtles are going to hatch out of your nest. They're going to come out tomorrow if the temperature does this spike and drop. So that's kind of an interesting effect. The other thing that's interesting is what happened to dinosaurs. Well, dinosaurs probably had temperature-dependent sex determination. We don't know if hot dinosaurs were males or females, but it doesn't matter because as the Cretaceous cooled off and the temperature of the nest dropped, they were all one sex. And so those pictures that you see of the dinosaurs looking up at the asteroid coming by, they may have been all males having a drinking party, or they may have been all females knitting or having a drinking party. But dinosaurs were on the way out from cooling temperatures, whether or not an asteroid hit them. You can't have all one sex. All right, so let's look at what's happened at Parque Nacional Las Baulas. We've been working there 34 years and counting, and the turtles are declining. This is Mary Alice Monroe on the left, and one of our board members, and Maggie Cruzy, another board member. Mary Alice is the author. Maggie is a folklore expert and from the Library of Congress. Balas National Park is in Costa Rica on the Pacific coast. Here's our picture of Costa Rica. Remember that we're working over on the Pacific coast at Balas. There's also Astianal up here, El Hobo up on the far left, Tortuguero here, Kendoca Manzanillo here. All these people working along the coast, Caribbean coast here, Pequari, Paris Mina, doing sea turtle conservation down in the Osa, which I think you don't see because of the map. Same thing. Beautiful land of volcanoes and tropical rainforest, etc. We're over in the dry forest. Over here, Parque National Las Balas, also Playa Cabayul. And we've been luckily to be able to continue Playa Cabayul with the help from the SAFE program. And then at El Hobo up north. Here's a picture of Playa Cabayul Beach, which is a municipal beach. And north, what you see to the north, the headlands, and up here is Santa Rosa, Guanacaste Park up there. So right now, Cabayul is not in a national protected park. It's a secondary nesting beach for leatherbacks. It's a municipal beach used by people during the day. They have municipal guards that chase people off at night. There are very few lights. It's a very nice beach for sea turtles. Here's the picture of the camp and the crew. This is shown here. Adam Yancey Keller is showing us video from his drone. He flew his drone over the estuary out in the ocean, over the mangrove swamps, and was able to document what was happening in that location. In 1995, as was mentioned, this is when the park was formed, just along the coast and south of Playa Langosta here, and the mangroves. We had been lobbying for 2 or 3 years to protect the beach. We actually got conned into this operation. Frank and I were doing leatherback metabolism, and Mario Bosa said, "Oh, I need scientists over on Playa Grande. There's lots of turtles there. You should study those turtles." Because scientists on the beach help to raise the stature and protection of the turtles. So we started doing that. The park was named by national decree, presidential decree in 1991. Then another president, their minister, decided to downgrade it because his brother-in-law wanted to build a casino there. So we objected, a lot of that sort of thing going on. And then we were able to get President Clinton involved, and he contacted Costa Rica and said he liked turtles a lot and leatherbacks, and they should make a park there. So 3 months later, they passed a law with the park. I think it was just, he just sort of took credit for our many years of hard work and convincing people. But yeah, I guess you need somebody of his stature to get this job done. So we've done research, education, conservation, all this sort of thing here. Here's what the beaches look like. In the foreground is Playa Ventanas, in the far distance, Playa Grande. Looking from the other direction, it's the beach up to 125 meters. The mountain to the north was included because no one thought at the time it was useful. Now people would love to put a casino and development on it. That's what the beach looked like in 1994, 95. Since that time, we've been using pit tags, just like you would with your dog, putting them in the front shoulders of the turtle, every leatherback, a little pit tag. So every animal was known. We had a turtle that was pit tagged in 1994, which came back last year for the first time. Not sure where she was. She could have been on another beach or could have just been not nesting, but she did come back. When we started, 1990, 1,500 turtles. Last year and this year, 3 turtles. That's an exponential decline. And these ups and downs are related to La Nina. The ocean's warm in La Nina, it's cold in El Nino. El Nino is warm. La Nina is cold. There were a lot of warm periods, and that contributed to decline, plus taking of the eggs and fishing activities. So here's Chris Luganville gave me this picture. He's in the picture. His father had harpooned this turtle, brought it ashore in Connecticut back in the 50s. But I use it as a case history picture. 1.4 billion hooks put in the oceans a year, 50 to 60,000 leatherbacks caught a year, 63% of leatherbacks in the Pacific a year, 10% of the leatherbacks killed by long lines, plus the gillnet fishery, another 10% along the coast of South America. You cannot sustain a population with 20% mortality annually, or even 10% really, and taking of all the eggs on the beach. So here's a figure from a recent paper by John or Juan Lopez, and Shane Griffiths is the first author on this, on the companion paper. Brian Wallace was involved in these efforts, in which they were able to obtain data from the from the International Tuna Commission and other sources, logbooks, onboard observers. The red points are turtles that were captured, interactions, about 1,000 of them. The little black points here, you see all those little black points at the bottom? Those are observations when they didn't catch a turtle on a set. This big black area are all black dots. You put enough black dots on there, it looks like you painted black. They recorded 500,000 sets, nets. There's a lot of fishing going on in the Pacific. And with that much fishing, you can have a very low encounter rate. You're still going to lose a lot of turtles. It's still a big problem. There are solutions suggested, circle hooks, change bait, et cetera, that if implemented could help reduce this impact. You'll notice, let's see if I can point. If you see my pointer right there, there's a little blue spot. That's the Galapagos, which is a protected area. So that's protected from fishing. The rest of the area is not. So Frank Palladino and I formed the Leatherback Trust back in 2001. We do conservation research. We still have a hatchery to protect nests endangered, clutches endangered by tides or poaching. We had some very generous donors so we could acquire a field station, the Gold Ring Gun field station. We stopped watering the grass, so that's dirt right now, going to be a vivarium. This is what the area looks like in satellite, protecting not only the beach, but the area behind it with the monkeys and the birds. And the beach today looks like it did when we started in '94. That was what the situation looked like before the park was formed. Tamarindo is over here on the left, 4 hotels, an ice factory, and a couple of stores. It's considerably larger now, well overgrown. Same thing with Playa Grande itself. There were a few houses there at the time the park was formed, and some preliminary efforts at development. As you can see here, lots sold in the park that you can't build in. As soon as you add people who bring their dogs not on leash, they dig up turtle nests. Not a good thing. Lights, of course, a big problem. We've just got a nice grant from National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to do a complete light survey and to get people to substitute amber LED lights for bright lights to keep the beach dark. Now, the other thing we've done is raised about $5 million for acquiring land. All these areas in red are land that's been acquired, expropriated, or purchased using funds that we obtained from donors, including the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation and Oakwood Foundation from John Grisham and others. So, for example, the area on the far right in this picture is a planned development, which is pretty good and does not cause much trouble. These houses are a little too close to the beach, but this area is expropriated. We bought this land and donated it to the park. Up at the far end of the beach, I want to go back. We're talking here on the far left. These are the original houses. This is our station. We bought this piece of land. This is the station of the park. Our money helped acquire this piece, these two lots, and these lots. And of course, here's the hatchery, this area here. There's a house sitting here. When they start building this house, we tried to get the park to stop it, and they said, well, they couldn't. So we went to court, and we got a court order. The park runs right up almost to the front door of this house, and you're not allowed to build a driveway through a park. The place we bought and the other houses were grandfathered in, but you can't go and cross the park and change the vegetation and all that business. So that house was frozen by the court and has been frozen for years. So if you can't go out to the street through the park, how can you get there? Well, you can get there going this way to the right, except the people who own that land won't let you do it. So you'd have to make a deal to go out the other way. And that has held up development for many, many years. Unfortunately, now in the new government, people have started building other houses here. Again, the government didn't stop them. So we're back in court to the Constitutional Court to try and stop that. But all of this area is being built now with houses. So the beach is changing from a primitive, or not primitive, but a naturalistic sort of place with a forest behind it to an urban beach. So we have to change our approach and think more like we're on an urban beach in the US perhaps, and try different strategies. Well, there's also a human dimension. We've had, well, this is an old slide. We've had many more Costa Rican students working with us. This is Rodney Pietra, who's now leading sea turtle person for the government, and Elizabeth Velez. They were trained, we helped train them and support them early in their system. We've had several people come to Drexel University for English. We've paid to support additional park rangers. We helped form the Guides and Ladies Association and been a local economic engine. Working in the local school, this is years ago with Jorge, the principal, and these students here are now adults. Judy Zabriskie started working in the school, teaching the kids about art and sea turtles. They had never seen a sea turtle. We continue to work with the schools. We've had our teams on the beach. That's Gabby, who now runs projects. She's in the Federal Science Service in Argentina. And all of these people are now continuing to do important conservation. This is Javier Lopez, our outreach manager, who works with local people, and Christian, who used to work for us and now has his own NGO leading local people in the community, and others. This is one of our teams back in 2016, I believe. And Bibi here with her, she just had a workshop at Playa Cabayul with folks from Santa Rosa Park and the National Museum to talk about what we know, what we need to know, and what kind of protection to have there. So we're intimately working in local communities, both to train people, to work with people, and to provide resources for the people who live by the beaches to protect the turtles. Now, you would think that after protecting the beaches for all these years, that we would have lots of turtles coming back. In Greece, 30 years ago, they started protecting Kyparissia, loggerheads, and zakynthos, and now they have thousands of turtles coming back to nest. So it takes 20, 30 years. We haven't seen that resurgence coming back to our beaches on the Pacific of Costa Rica. We hope maybe next year they'll be coming. We do see new turtles, so we are producing some. But we continue to provide a supply of hatchlings entering the ocean and protect the beaches because the turtles are out there. There's plenty of juveniles out there. They're going to come back eventually, and they need to have a place to come where they can lay their eggs. It's no different than if you have airplanes off an aircraft carrier. If you don't have an aircraft carrier, they have no place to go when they come back. So remember that little thing about temperature-dependent sex determination? Got all this effort going on. What's going to happen with climate change? Well, these are plots that Bibi did. Predictions using the climate models. Hatching success is now somewhere in the 30 to 50% range. With warming climate and heating up the clutches and eggs, it's going to drop by 2100. An emergent success of those that hatch is 80%. With the heating, that's going to drop. So it's a double whammy for these turtles. If you look at a population model, then the mean population change of -7% a year, it still shows a tremendous decline predicted for the turtles. So the population is projected to decline even with everything else that we do to help it. So we have to make changes in protecting the clutches and perhaps cooling them. And that's the effort that we're doing right now, is attempting to determine the best way to maintain high hatching success and emergent success. Because hatching success declines with, here's smooth function, here's the effect with air temperature, and I'm not sure you can see the bottom one. It's a same sort of thing. So we are going to keep producing turtles. We're going to keep protecting this beach and the other beaches, train more people, support everybody we can, hope that our colleagues out in the oceans can help change the way fishing takes place so that turtles survive the fishing business out there, because that's a tough one for us. The goal here has always been the same goal. This picture is taken a long time ago, and I always say that when these young women grow up and they have children, that they'll have turtles to come and show their children to. And I believe on the left is Katie, who just had a baby. And in a few years, we'll bring her offspring to see the turtles. So the future of sea turtle protection in Costa Rica, the future is that you and me, we all have a lot of work to do on all these fronts. The cost of conservation is eternal vigilance, eternal work. I don't care if you go back to that picture of the sinking ship. You may think the ship is sinking, get some more duct tape, patch something up, do your part, save a turtle, save a beach, convince people to do a better job. That's what we have to do. This picture, to leave you with a positive image, the leatherback and hawksbill, they both hatched out of their own nests. Last week, near Pequari in Costa Rica. So we keep producing hatchlings, keep having turtles. There's hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such incredible information. Just based on the questions already coming in, we have a lot of exciting discussion and a lot of exciting ideas floating around. And I just wanted to, on behalf of everybody, say thank you so much for bringing all of this to us. I wanted to start off, since you had touched just a little bit on it, with the question I typed in the Q&A section, asking if there's any progress being made on the longline bycatch problem.
There is progress being made on the longline bycatch problem. And those papers I just mentioned, that I did mention, let me see if I can pull up the papers in endangered species research, various mitigation methods using circle hooks, finfish bait, and the best handling and release practices decrease the vulnerability. And using all of those measures together can help. So those are the important things. The other thing is to get full compliance. I don't know the details of who's doing what fishing in the Pacific. I know that there's 100,000 boats that the Chinese have put out into the Pacific. And if you go to the grocery store, you'll find all sorts of Pacific salmon and Alaska codfish, etc., that are coming from China. I don't think they're growing it there. So there may be an unknown mortality factor there. I don't know if that's included in these other studies.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that information. We also had a question regarding how, how your work with the developers are going, or like how often you have to take those developments to court, like you had mentioned.
We spent a lot of time. One of the things we did was to convince folks in Costa Rica that, like in the United States, if you can't get your government to do what you want it to, you can always use the courts. And so we've won 7 constitutional court cases that have prevented the number 1, define the limits of the park, because that was unclear. Number 2, define that the park has to be kept forever. Number 3, stopping various developments. And the most recent case is this one with building going on in the involving the national park. So it's a continual sort of effort that we have, both to check on whether permits are correct with the municipality, to going to the constitutional court to make sure that rules and laws are being followed. And then we have worked with some developers to improve their developments, like the Palm Beach development that was set up. We've also experienced threats from developers who thought that we should go away. But it's a continuing sort of effort, let's say.
Thank you. And I'm going to try to ask you kind of 3 questions that have been typed in, because we don't have too much time for more questions. But there's 3 questions that I think are interrelated that I wanted to try to get together in one. And that is all related to seeing nesting on beaches that are further north. So South Carolina is seeing leatherback nests this year, and there was a comment from somebody seeing nests further north, like in Virginia, and they're wondering, are turtles starting to naturally migrate further north to escape the heat of the South, or is there a trend, or do you think this might be a one-off?
I don't think it's a one-off. I think turtles are certainly on the east coast of the U.S. There's more and more nesting as you go going north than there used to be, all the way up into Virginia. And I would expect, as the climate continues to warm and the ocean conditions change, that turtles will find new nesting beaches, because turtles, we think they come back to where they hatch, but there's a lot of scatter. And they find a new beach and then keep going to that beach. So there are beaches that are seeing more nesting than they used to in the past, or new nesting, and that's to be expected. We don't have a lot of information on nesting of leatherbacks north of Costa Rica. There's some in Nicaragua, but not a lot till you get up to Mexico. But it's not a one-off, and I think it is related to changing ocean and climate conditions.
Relating to the beaches that they're choosing and the, excuse me, temperature-dependent sex determination, is there any benefit to the temperature-dependent sex determination, like evolutionarily? And are there other issues or threats like tidal inundation and rising seas that we're seeing or expecting?
There is a positive impact of temperature-dependent sex determination in the sense of producing more females, because BB has done various modeling that shows with temperature-dependent sex determination, production of more females, the population is more resilient to various effects. The population lasts longer, let's say. If the temperature gets too hot, the eggs just don't survive. So yes, there can be a positive there. And the problem of inundation of the beach is an obvious one. As ocean levels rise and storms get bigger, the problem is not a big problem if you don't have houses on the beach, because the beach can migrate. And if the beach moves around, well, there's always sand for the turtles. But if you put houses there and you stop the beach from moving and you sandbag it, or you put a wall up, turtles don't have any place to lay their eggs. So they lose the beach.
And I'm going to give us one last question to, I hope, leave us on a message of hope, just like you did. And that is, how can we help to spread the word of sea turtle conservation initiatives, get support or involvement that is needed?
I think what everybody can do is, of course, everybody could support the Leatherback Trust because we do great work, but there are many such organizations. The Karen Beasley Center in North Carolina, your zoos, your aquaria, all can be helpful. The thing to do is to learn more about sea turtles by reading up books on sea turtles and finding out information, and start even in your own community. You've got a turtle pond someplace. You got turtles walking across the road. You can put up signs that say, "Watch out for the turtles." If you don't live on the ocean, you can protect turtles inland. You can do things in the local schools so children learn about the importance of turtles. Turtles are great animals. They're not venomous. They don't bite you much. And so it's a great way to learn for children to learn to respect life and animals, and a great way to build up support. We've had, $36.83 from a grade school in Massachusetts, for example, as a donation, because they had a fundraiser for turtles. And they can, you can help that way. You can be a volunteer. We have Earthwatch volunteers on our beaches. You can volunteer in your local, if you're by a turtle nesting beach, there's always a way for you to volunteer to help. There are lots of different ways you can do it, and every little bit helps. You don't know whether the turtle you save is the one that makes the difference. So save every one you can.
All right, you guys, I am going to wrap things up. We are a minute or two after the hour. I'd like to just first thank Dr. Spotila for being with us today, for the many, many years of great work he and his team are doing to advance sea turtle conservation, to save this critically endangered species, subpopulation of leatherback turtles, and for all the students and others that you've worked with over the years that are now carrying the torch to continue to protect sea turtles and ultimately the planet. Thank you to Cassandra and Katie for helping keep us organized today and for managing the Q&A. And I'd just like to share my screen briefly to thank our program partners. Hopefully that is showing up. I'd like to thank our 19 program partners that are part of the Sea Turtle Safe program for their support that enables us to support Playa Cabayul Adopt a Beach program. We're starting a second Adopt a Beach program for Eastern Pacific leatherbacks in Mexico in the next month or two. We also have a tremendous amount of other work that we're doing to protect both Kemp's ridleys, Eastern Pacific leatherbacks, and really all species of sea turtles. I just want to thank you all for being here today. You will receive an email with a link to the recording. We've encouraged you to forward it to your friends and colleagues. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to the Sea Turtle Safe program at the email on the slide. Have a great day. Happy World Sea Turtle Day, everyone. That's what we're celebrating today. It was actually yesterday, which was also Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and happy World Sea Turtle Day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.